The suffocating heat of Manila embraced the Pacquiao family mansion like a persistent memory of the difficult days that remained in the past. On the office walls, dozens of boxing belts gleamed under the golden light of late afternoon, each one representing a battle won, a dream conquered through calloused fists and unwavering determination. Manny Pacquiao gazed out the window at the bustling streets of the Filipino capital, his thoughts wandering between the glories of the past and the concerns of the present. At 55 years old, the legendary pugilist carried in his features the marks of a life dedicated entirely to the sport that lifted him from the extreme poverty of General Santos City. His hands, once lethal weapons in the ring, now trembled slightly when holding his phone, not from fear of former adversaries, but from the anxiety of a conversation he knew was inevitable. Retirement from the rings had come, but the responsibility of being father to a talented young man continued to weigh on his shoulders like a challenge even greater than any professional fight. Michael Pacquiao, his 22-year-old son, possessed all the physical and technical attributes necessary to follow the family legacy in boxing. Training since he was 12, under the guidance of Freddie Roach and other great masters, the young man demonstrated sharp reflexes, power in his punches, and tactical intelligence that impressed even the most demanding critics. However, in recent months, something had changed drastically in the young man's attitude, and Manny felt that an emotional storm was approaching his family. The house, which for years had echoed with the sounds of morning training sessions and animated conversations about fighting strategies, now seemed shrouded in uncomfortable silence. Michael avoided his father's gaze during meals, responded with monosyllables when asked about his training, and spent long hours locked in his room. But instead of the usual video games, strange melodies could be heard seeping through the door. Manny's wife, Jinky, tried to mediate the growing tensions, but sensed that the situation was spiraling out of her control. That particular afternoon, as shadows lengthened across the marble floor of the living room, Manny made a decision that would forever change the family dynamic. He knew the time had come to face the truth that Michael had been trying to hide, even if it meant questioning everything he had built as a father and as a national idol. His phone vibrated in his hands, and the message that appeared on the screen confirmed his worst fears. His son had cancelled another training session, claiming an indisposition that both knew was a lie. The Wildcard Gym in General Santos City maintained its unchanging routine even without Michael Pacquiao's presence. Freddie Roach, the trainer who had molded Manny's technique during his glory years, watched with concern the increasingly frequent absence of the promising young fighter. The other boxers continued their intense training, but everyone felt the absence of the contagious energy that Michael used to bring to the environment. Sweat dripped down the concrete walls, mixing with the tropical humidity that made each training session a test of physical and mental endurance. Manny arrived at the gym that Thursday morning with a determination he hadn't felt in years. His footsteps echoed across the worn rubber floor as he greeted the young athletes who revered him like a god of the sport. However, his mind was focused exclusively on finding answers to Michael's strange behavior. Freddie approached with a somber expression, carrying in his hands a folder with documents that seemed to contain important information about the champion's son's professional future. The conversation between the two men took place in a reserved corner of the gym, away from the curious ears of the other boxers. Freddie revealed that Michael had been secretly seeking out music teachers and recording studios across Manila, using false names to avoid recognition. The young man had been spotted at conservatories, jam sessions in underground venues, and even carrying guitar cases and notebooks filled with musical compositions. Local music instructors had reported a talented young Filipino who paid in cash and refused to give his real name. Manny's initial shock quickly transformed into a complex mixture of disappointment and curiosity. Throughout his life, he had assumed that Michael would naturally follow in his footsteps in boxing, especially considering the exceptional talent the young man had demonstrated since childhood. The discovery that his son was secretly exploring musical passions made him question whether he truly knew the dreams and aspirations of the new generation of his family. Freddie handed Manny a series of discreet photographs showing Michael entering musicology studios in Quezon City, carrying a worn acoustic guitar and a backpack that clearly contained sheet music rather than boxing equipment. Another image showed him at a small venue in Malate, apparently participating in an open mic night, his face illuminated by stage lights and showing an expression of pure joy that Manny had rarely seen during boxing training sessions. At that moment, the legendary pugilist understood that the most important battle of his life would not be fought in any ring, but in the heart of his own home. Dinner at the Pacquiao residence passed in deafening silence, punctuated only by the discreet sound of silverware touching fine china plates. Michael kept his eyes fixed on his food, carefully avoiding any eye contact with his father, while Jinky made desperate attempts to initiate casual conversations about neutral topics. The tension in the air was so palpable that even the domestic staff walked on tiptoes, as if any louder noise could trigger an emotional explosion. Manny discreetly observed Michael's gestures, noticing details that had previously gone unnoticed. The young man's hands, traditionally protected by boxing gloves and carefully wrapped, now showed calluses on his fingertips consistent with guitar playing, and small ink stains that suggested he had been writing musical compositions. His posture had changed too. Instead of the rigid, defensive stance typical of boxers, Michael seemed more relaxed, occasionally tapping rhythms on his leg or humming barely audible melodies under his breath. His mother tried to break the ice by mentioning a birthday party that would take place over the weekend. But Michael only mumbled an evasive response before asking to be excused from the table. His footsteps on the marble stairs echoed through the house like a final sentence, leaving the parents alone with their conflicting thoughts. Jinky looked at Manny with an expression that mixed concern and silent pleading, imploring him to find a way to reconnect with their son before the distance became irreversible. Later that night, Manny walked through the silent corridors of the mansion, passing by family photographs that documented Michael's evolution since childhood. In one of the images, the 8-year-old boy smiled radiantly beside his father, wearing children's boxing gloves and proudly displaying a bronze medal won at a local tournament. The next photo showed Michael at 15, already with a more developed physique, posing seriously beside Freddie Roach after an important victory in Las Vegas. However, the most recent photographs revealed a subtle but significant change in Michael's expression. His smiles seemed forced. His eyes had lost that genuine sparkle of enthusiasm that characterized his personality during childhood. But now Manny noticed something else. In several recent family photos, Michael's hands were positioned as if holding an invisible guitar, and his gaze often drifted toward the family piano that had sat unused in the corner of the living room for years. The pain of realizing how blind he had been to his son's true interests hit him with more force than any punch he had received during his professional career. The following morning, Manny made a decision that went against all his paternal instincts and his controlling nature. Instead of confronting Michael directly about his secret activities, he decided to discreetly follow his son to truly understand what his authentic passions were. Wearing casual clothes and dark sunglasses, the former world champion positioned himself strategically at a cafe near the music studio where Michael had been photographed, feeling simultaneously like a detective and like a desperate father trying to reconnect with his own son. Musicology Studios, located in a vibrant area of Quezon City, was a modest but energetic space filled with the constant hum of creativity. Young musicians of various genres came and went, carrying instruments and sharing the universal language of music. Manny observed through the glass windows the recording sessions, group rehearsals, and individual lessons taking place, trying to imagine how Michael had discovered this world so different from the brutal and competitive environment of professional boxing. When Michael finally arrived, Manny almost didn't recognize his own son. The young man carried a beautiful acoustic guitar in a worn leather case, wore comfortable clothes suitable for musical performance, and moved with a confidence that seemed to emanate from finally being in his element. Even more impressive was the transformation in his demeanor. Michael greeted other musicians with genuine warmth, his face lighting up with authentic smiles that Manny hadn't seen at home in months. The session lasted 3 hours, and throughout that entire time, Manny remained captivated watching through the studio's observation window. Michael played guitar with remarkable skill, his fingers dancing across the strings with precision and emotion that spoke of countless hours of secret practice. But what truly amazed Manny was when his son began to sing. Michael's voice was rich, soulful, and carried the same fighting spirit that had defined the Pacquiao name, but channeled into something entirely different and beautiful. At the end of the session, Manny watched Michael collaborating with Kiko Resurrección, a well-respected music producer who had worked with some of the Philippines' biggest artists. The passion and enthusiasm that shone in Michael's eyes during their discussion about chord progressions and lyrical themes contrasted dramatically with the apathy he demonstrated during boxing conversations at home. At that moment, Manny understood that forcing his son to follow a path that wasn't truly his would be equivalent to silencing a voice that was meant to inspire the world. During the following days, Manny began a discreet investigation into the Philippine music industry, discovering a rich and complex artistic landscape that existed completely outside his comfort zone. He visited record stores, browsed music websites, and even attended live performances at small venues across Manila, trying to understand what had so intensely captured Michael's imagination. Each new discovery surprised him more, revealing that professional music required discipline, emotional vulnerability, technical skill, and dedication comparable to professional boxing. Simultaneously, Manny began observing Michael with new eyes during daily family interactions. He noticed how his son unconsciously hummed melodies while walking through the house, how his fingers moved in guitar chord patterns when he thought no one was looking, and how his eyes lit up whenever music played on the television or radio. These details, which had previously gone unnoticed, now revealed the extent of the musical passion that had been growing within Michael, a passion he had been forced to keep secret due to family expectations. Jinky began to perceive the subtle change in Manny's behavior, noticing that he asked indirect questions about Michael's interests and showed unprecedented curiosity about their son's activities outside the gym. She intuited that something important was happening, but chose to give her husband space to process his discoveries without interference. However, the tension in the house remained palpable, especially during meals, when Michael clearly struggled against the desire to share his musical experiences with the family. One evening, while walking through the mansion's garden, Manny heard the faint sound of guitar music coming from the poolside area. Following the melody, he discovered Michael sitting on a bench under the stars, playing a beautiful original composition and singing softly in both English and Tagalog. The song seemed to tell the story of a young man torn between duty and dreams, between honoring his family and being true to himself. The lyrics were profound and personal, revealing an artistic maturity that took Manny's breath away. Manny remained hidden behind a large palm tree, listening to his son's private concert with a mixture of admiration and remorse. The music was hauntingly beautiful, carrying the same emotional intensity that Manny had brought to his greatest fights, but transformed into something that could heal hearts rather than break them. He understood at that moment that Michael wasn't rejecting the family legacy out of rebellion or laziness, but because he had discovered a form of expression that resonated more deeply with his soul. The decision about how to approach this delicate situation weighed on his shoulders like a responsibility, even greater than any world title he had won during his boxing career. On Saturday morning, Manny decided that the time had come to directly confront the situation that had been consuming his family for months. He carefully prepared his words, remembering the lessons of humility he had learned during his own moments of adversity in his sporting career. Instead of starting the conversation with accusations or demonstrations of disappointment, Manny opted for an approach based on vulnerability and admission of his own mistakes as a father. Michael was in his room, discreetly working on song lyrics in a notebook. He quickly tried to hide when Manny knocked softly on the door. The expression of surprise and slight panic that crossed the young man's face immediately revealed that he knew his secret musical life had been discovered. However, instead of the scolding he expected, Michael found a father with eyes brimming with tears and a posture that demonstrated genuine regret. Manny sat on the edge of Michael's bed and began talking about his own journey of self-discovery during his youth, when he had to choose between following his poor family's expectations in General Santos City and pursuing the seemingly impossible dream of becoming a professional boxer. He shared painful memories of moments when he felt misunderstood and alone, especially when people doubted his ability due to his humble origins and his initially slight physique. The conversation naturally evolved into a deeper discussion about identity, passion, and each person's right to choose their own path in life. Michael, initially defensive and prepared for a confrontation, gradually began opening up about his experiences in the music world, describing the sensation of freedom and authenticity he felt when creating songs and performing. His words carried a raw emotion that Manny had rarely witnessed, revealing the depth of connection Michael had developed with music as both an art form and a means of personal expression. Father and son spent hours talking, sharing tears, embraces, and an emotional honesty that had been absent from their relationship for a long time. Manny admitted that he had projected his own dreams and insecurities onto Michael, erroneously assuming that boxing would automatically be the young man's passion. Michael, in turn, expressed his gratitude for the legacy of discipline and determination he had inherited from his father, explaining how these values were helping him pursue his musical dreams with seriousness and professional dedication, even writing songs that honored their family's journey from poverty to success. In the days following the revealing conversation, the atmosphere in the Pacquiao house began to gradually transform. Michael, for the first time in months, showed genuine enthusiasm during family meals, sharing stories about his songwriting process and the musicians he had collaborated with at various studios around Manila. Jinky watched with relief and admiration the evolution of the relationship between her husband and son, perceiving that an important emotional healing was happening in their family. Manny made a decision that surprised even himself. He decided to personally visit musicology studios to meet the environment that had so completely captured Michael's passion. The visit was initially tense, with the young musicians clearly intimidated by the presence of the world boxing legend. But Kiko Resurrection received Manny with respect and professionalism, offering to explain the fundamentals of music production and demonstrate how artistic discipline could parallel the dedication required in professional sports. During the visit, Manny listened to a complete recording session where Michael performed one of his original compositions. Observing through the control room window, he watched with growing amazement as his son demonstrated not only impressive musical technique, but also natural leadership skills, helping guide other musicians through complex arrangements and offering creative suggestions that elevated the entire production. Michael's performance that day was particularly moving, as if his father's presence had released a creative energy that had been building for years. Kiko explained to Manny that Michael possessed rare musical talent, comparable to the athletic gifts that had made the Pacquiao family famous worldwide. He mentioned that several record labels in Manila and even international music industry professionals had begun showing interest in Michael's original compositions, offering opportunities that could launch a legitimate music career with global potential. This information helped Manny understand that Michael's passion wasn't just a rebellious phase, but a serious artistic calling with the potential to create a meaningful and successful career. At the end of the visit, Manny made an announcement that left Michael and everyone present at the studio completely shocked. He declared publicly that he would fully support Michael's decision to pursue music as a professional career, offering not only emotional support, but also financial backing to help his son record his first professional album and perform at major venues. The studio erupted in cheers and applause, but the most emotional moment was when father and son embraced in the recording booth, finally reconciled and united around a new shared dream that honored both tradition and innovation. 6 months after the decision to fully support Michael's musical dreams, the Pacquiao family had transformed completely. The mansion that once echoed with silent tensions now resonated with the beautiful sounds of Michael's music, as he had converted one of the spare rooms into a home studio where he composed and practiced daily. Michael had signed with a respected Philippine record label and was working on his debut album, which would blend traditional Filipino musical elements with contemporary styles, creating something entirely unique and personally meaningful. Manny discovered that supporting Michael's dreams had reignited his own passion for nurturing young talent, but in a completely new arena. He began regularly attending recording sessions and local music venues, not as a controlling father, but as an enthusiastic supporter, learning about an art form he had never appreciated before. His presence initially generated curiosity in Manila's music scene, but gradually he was accepted as a patron who genuinely respected the artistic process and understood the dedication required to excel in any field. Michael's debut single, a heartfelt ballad about family to dreams and finding one's own path, was released to critical acclaim and commercial success throughout the Philippines. The song's music video featured subtle nods to the Pacquiao boxing legacy while celebrating Michael's musical journey, creating a beautiful bridge between past and future. Manny felt a mixture of nervousness and pride reminiscent of his biggest fights, but this time he was in the audience of a sold-out concert venue, cheering for someone he loved more than any championship belt. Several international music industry executives who had heard Michael's work approached the family with offers for global distribution and collaboration opportunities with established artists. Record labels from Singapore, Japan, and even the United States expressed interest in working with the talented young Filipino musician who had captured hearts with his authentic storytelling and exceptional vocal ability. Manny smiled as he realized that his son was about to embark on an international journey of artistic success, following a path completely different from his own, but equally worthy of respect and admiration. That night, as the family celebrated Michael's first major recording contract at home, Manny reflected on how his decision to support his son's true calling had not only saved their relationship, but had also taught him invaluable lessons about parenthood, acceptance, and the courage required to let the people we love pursue their authentic selves. The Pacquiao legacy would continue to shine brightly, not through repetition of the past, but through evolution and growth, with each generation finding their own unique way to inspire the world. Michael had chosen music as his arena, and Manny had chosen to be the father his son truly needed, supporting his dreams while learning that love sometimes means letting go of our own expectations to embrace something even more beautiful.
Leave your like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next cases.